everyone, and welcome to the Benita's Maternity Program webinar. Today we're speaking with Sister Ingrid Groenewald, who will be chatting to us about how to prepare the perineum for birth and how to possibly avoid stitches. Welcome, Sister Ingrid.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be with you here again today. This definitely is a topic that causes for many people great concern before birth, and even by thinking how will you actually recover after birth and how can you prevent these stitches. So now, first of all, let's start off by just telling you, or just by talking about what exactly is the perineum. So I can also just show you, I've got a handmade little model that I made, and also to show you. That is really the skin or the tissue basically between the vagina and the anus that is at the bottom. Okay, so that is your, that is this kind of tissue here, or the skin here, that needs to really stretch for the baby's birth. That is called the perineum. Okay, so now you might have, in pregnancy, you might have already given it some thought as to, is there something to prepare? Is there something to do? What will happen to that? And so on. But let me tell you today, there is quite a big difference in people if they think about it before, and if you prepare the perineum for the actual birth. Okay, so just to come back to what it is, it's this kind of area. If this here is the vagina and this here at the bottom is the anus, it is this area here between these two areas. Okay, so this skin here, that is called the perineum. That is the area that needs to stretch when the baby's birth, when the baby is being born, or when the head is being born. Okay, so what exactly then happens at birth? What happens to this area? So let me explain to you, if I can just show you, if this is the head, and the head is starting to be born, we say the head is crowning. So that means when the head is being, if this is the perineum, if the head is being born and you can start seeing the head, this skin here needs to stretch quite a bit, okay, to allow the head to be born. Okay, so now there are three things that potentially can happen. The first thing, and that is where in the, years ago, it was quite common practice for a lot of caregivers to actually do a episiotomy. That is where they cut, normally not in the middle, but more to the side, to make an opening for the head to be born easier. Okay, that is called an episiotomy. I must say that is not common practice anymore. Luckily, they have found that for most women, it is not necessary. Okay, so this is definitely possibly a question that you can ask your caregiver as to how often does he or how often does she do episiotomies, so that you can know what to potentially expect, and you can even then tell your caregiver that you are in actual fact preparing the perineum to be able to stretch better. Okay, so that is the first thing that can happen. It is when your doctor or your midwife makes an opening, a cut to the side. Okay, so if I show you on my model again, if it's an opening to the side, that is called an episiotomy. And then the next thing, that if that is not done, it is possible to have a small tear. And this is again when the head is being born and these, this area needs to start to stretch, that sometimes you have a tear somewhere on this area, or even inside, where there's a little bit of a tear and you need some stitches afterwards. Okay, this is where the stitches come in. Okay, and also obviously if you have an episiotomy, you will also need to have some stitches done. So those are the first two things that can possibly happen. And the next thing, and the next biggest possibility, is that it can actually, nothing can happen. So meaning that it can stretch, allow the head to be born and the baby to be born. And if one examines this area, that there are no tears. So this is obviously what we want. We want you to be able to open up, to stretch for this baby to be born, that you don't need any stitches. Let's face it, if you've got stitches in that area, it is uncomfortable to actually even sit sit down, because it's exactly where you think you're sitting. That is what you're going to feel. So let's try to see what can you do now in pregnancy to try to have this one, that possibility of by saying, I don't have any stitches after birth, you know, because it is definitely a possibility. Okay. Now, the first thing that comes to mind, and it might sound really weird, is that your health or your eating habits, this is quite important. It is only in the last couple of years that we really realize how important your diet actually is to your pregnancy and to the health of these cells. So we want these cells in this area to be able to be really healthy, so that they can really stretch and open up. And the best way to do that, obviously, the first thing is to eat healthy, good food. So of a variety of different natural foods. Okay, so that is really the first thing. The next thing is to do regular exercises. Any kind of exercise is always good. It's not just for your fitness levels, but again, it's for these cells to be really be able to function fully. Okay, so that is where diet and exercise always comes in. Okay. So the next thing, which I know some of you might have heard before, is by doing perineal massages. And basically what that means is we want to prepare the skin to really be able to stretch, okay? And by doing that is to do perineal massages, okay? So how that normally works is you use any kind of natural oil that you would actually be able to eat yourself. So you can even go to the kitchen and have a look what is in the cupboard. If it's sunflower oil, olive oil, any of these oils you can definitely use. Otherwise, you get specifically perineal massage oils that are mixed with certain kind of essential oils that also helps to prepare the skin and even helps for healing afterwards. So that you can get at an aromatherapist, that they can mix it for you. And in some places it might be available on the shelves. But it is called perineal massage oil. And this is what you then use, and you basically put some on your fingers. And the first thing that you do is by just massaging that oil, and even if it's olive oil, that's also fine, just massage that on that area, okay? So this whole area that we need to massage this, and then actually also at the inside, and I'm going to explain to you how exactly to do this. But first of all, you don't do this from the beginning of pregnancy. The best time to actually do this is, I would say, from about 36 weeks in pregnancy onwards. And the best, by thinking when in the day, is early in the morning when you get up, and also at night when you get into bed. So that is usually the best time also to do the perineal massages. Then how then to do this is, like I said, you put some oil on your fingers and you just rub this area, and then also having some oil on your thumb. And then what you do here is you basically at the inside, you also have to just put some oil in, and then you press down with your thumb and you press to the front. Okay, so this will automatically burn. Okay, so it's very much the same sensation like when you open your mouth and you pull to the sides. You know that burning sensation? Just try that for a minute. Okay, you feel that burning. That is what it's going to feel like. Okay, so if you press, if I can use my hand here again, if you press down the perineum and you press to the front, this is where it's going to stretch this area immediately, especially if it's the first time that you do it. It's going to burn for a bit, and then you just let go after a couple of seconds, and you just do this again. If you do this in the morning and at night for a couple of days, after a while, you're going to start noticing it doesn't burn anymore like the first time that you did it. And you can actually stretch more. Later on, it's even possible to say, do the massaging, and then with 2 fingers is by actually massaging like that, and just by pushing forward with 2 fingers. this definitely helps to prepare the skin to be able to stretch more. Okay, so this is definitely something that is doable. Also, if one looks at statistics, the possibility to have an episiotomy, the possibility to have stitches, tearing and then stitches afterwards is greatly reduced. So it's definitely something that is doable for moms at the end of their pregnancies. Okay, it has a couple of advantages. First of all, like I already said, it prepares the skin to be able to stretch better. Okay, but it also helps a person as a woman to know exactly what your body, it's almost like you start noticing what does it feel like, what if you feel this in labor and you're pushing and this head is starting to be born and you feel that burning sensation. It's immediately a feeling that you know because you've practiced this before, you know what this feels like. So it's almost like people actually do better in the second stage of labor, and that is a stage where the baby is actually born. Okay, so that is why it's really a good idea to do this. And I understand that it's not for everyone. Some people feel very comfortable doing this, and some people, perhaps you're sitting here and you're thinking in your life you will never be able to feel comfortable. But if there's any possibility of you trying this, you know, the advantage are just so great. The possibility of not having any stitches is definitely there. And even for big babies can be born. Many big babies, way over 4 kilograms, can be born without you having any stitches. Okay, so it definitely helps you to be in tune with your body, that you also know what it actually feels like. Okay, so now let's say your baby was now born, and obviously what will happen immediately afterwards is that your midwife or your doctor is going to check just to see, do you need stitches? And if you do, then obviously the stitches will be done at that time. But remember, at the time your baby's just born, your baby's on your chest in most cases, you know, you are so overwhelmed, this little person sitting here, that you are so much focusing on your baby that a lot of times people are not really even aware as to what are the other things that actually happen at the time. So it's really by holding your baby and by looking at your baby and cuddling your baby. Okay. But then obviously if you need stitches, your doctor or your midwife will put in the stitches. And then for everyone, you know, for everybody who, if you had stitches, but even for those, hopefully you don't have any stitches or you won't need any kind of stitches, it is important to think, how can you recover this area? Because even if you don't have stitches, this whole area had to really you know, it really had to stretch. So it's possible to have some bruising, some swelling. So we want to see what can you do to increase, you know, the health, you know, just healthy perineum afterwards, that everything recovers a lot quicker. And the first thing is arnica tablets are actually excellent to take after birth. And it's called arnica D6 tablets that you can get on the shelves at any pharmacy. You would be able to get that. And it helps for bruising and swelling. Okay, so you can start taking that. And then also is by doing sitz baths, and that is where you take a bit of water in the bath that you just dissolve some salt in, a handful of salt in a bit of water, and you just dissolve that, and then you basically go and sit down and you just basically rinse the area. So even if you had no stitches, okay, it is still advisable to try for the first few days to do some sitz baths, because it just keeps that area healthy, okay, and clean. Okay, so that is where the salt water actually comes in handy. Another thing that is really excellent is by saying, if you have a jug of water next to the loo, and every time you go to the toilet, you're sitting on the loo and you basically take a jug of lukewarm water dissolved with some salt, and you can just like pour this over. And because you're on the loo, there's no mess. So this is actually a really good idea to actually just keep that area clean and healthy. Okay. Another tip here, that for those of you, if it's really uncomfortable, some people battle a bit that it's uncomfortable sitting and it's uncomfortable fully healing. And in most cases, if you don't have any stitches, it's definitely more comfortable compared to having stitches. So this goes with either way, having stitches or no stitches, is by looking at the pads that you're using. And what you can do, and I just want to show you, if you take a normal pad, normally for the first 2 or 3 days, you're going to use maternity pads. Now, this is just a normal one, but you can use a maternity pad, and you take aloe vera gel, and you can just put a little bit of aloe vera gel in the middle, okay, and then you close it again and you freeze this. You put it in the freezer that it's cold, and you keep on using. If you need a new one, you take it out of the freezer. It's now ice cold. You've got the aloe vera gel in the middle, and you can use this. So especially if you haven't, if it's swollen or if it's bruised, that coldness of it really relieves a lot of the discomfort, and the aloe vera gel actually helps to improve healing. Okay, so that is something that is a tip that you can try to do. So yeah, that is something that you can just use afterwards. And then another thing, that if you do have stitches, basically a ring pillow is something that is quite comfortable to sit on. So because like I mentioned before, if you have stitches on the perineum, it's exactly where you currently sitting. This is exactly where the perineum is, you know, so it can be really uncomfortable. So if you have a ring pillow or a ring cushion like this, it makes it easy. You can put it down and you go and sit, and your perineum actually is in the middle. If you don't have a pillow like this, don't worry. You just take a blanket or a towel. You roll it up, and you can just form it in a ball, in a circle, and you can just sit on that as well. That also makes it a lot, you know, that it's a little bit more comfortable to sit down. So those are the kind of things that you can do. And then the last thing that I want to mention here as well is an infrared lamp. Works wonders as well. If you have an infrared lamp that you can plug in, and the light that it produces helps a lot for healing as well. And you can just push it to wherever it's comfortable, and you can just have that on the perineum, that it shines on the perineum for a few minutes. Another thing that really works well, obviously, is the sun. So sun exposure is great, but I don't know about you. For most people, it is quite a tricky business to say, you know, get your perineum exposed in the sun, because you might have neighbors that are close by and you don't want to cause anybody a big fright. So I would say, you know, if you can, if you have a window somewhere where the sun comes in, it's great to be able to do that. If not, then just try to see if you can use an infrared lamp. Perhaps you have one, or you can borrow one from someone, and you can just use that on the area. And then if you don't have, don't worry. Even just by doing the zit baths, by doing, you know, the loo, just with the rinsing in the, you know, with the water, with the lukewarm water, already will help a lot. But remember again here that even though you're having a natural birth, it does not mean that you will need stitches afterwards. And this is something that I often find people almost assume this will happen. And if you prepare your perineum with these massages, with being able to teach the skin to be able to stretch better, the possibility is greatly reduced. So I hope this helps you today. And if you are already 36 weeks or further pregnant in your pregnancy, you can definitely start this twice a day, in the morning and at night, and then it helps you to prepare the perineum to be able to stretch. And remember to tell your care provider as well that you are doing this, in fact, so that they know, okay, so you know, this skin will be able to stretch nicely for this baby to be born. Okay, hope that helped you. Thank you very much.